All right. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to head down to patreon.com/House of Decline. This is the beginning of the episode ad read. We'll get it out of the way quickly. Then we'll mention the Patreon several more times throughout the episode. But you're going to want to go to patreon.com/House of Decline, HAUS of Decline. Get so many fucking comics. So many fucking extra podcasts. It's nuts. An entire backlog. 300 comics for $3. It's a crazy amount of comics. You won't even believe. Also go to houseofdecline.com, hausofdecline.com, where you can see all of the free comics and all of the free podcasts and everything there. We've gone through a format change as of recent because longtime podcast partner Steven has left the show. So now, instead of mostly being just about two friends bullshitting, now it's going to be me pulling people that I have met online, interesting and cool people from online, and especially from Twitter, where the title of the show and the title of the whole media enterprise actually works out, because we are in a moment of decline with Twitter right now. And we'll try and review it. We'll try and see what happens as it continues to decline, and maybe get some people who are on the site who can relive. We can talk about what happens on this awful venue for opinions and artwork and general jollity. But as our first guest of this format change, someone who I've loved on Twitter for a very long time, excellent posts, supreme posting game. We have Lauren at Not a Big Jerk. How are you doing, Lauren?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for having me on. Thank you for the nice intro. I think you'll find, actually, if you look at my tweets, I am something of a big jerk. This is, as many people point out, anytime I do anything.
Well, yeah, it's because you have strong opinions and you're willing to field them, which is why I think you've developed a following as such, because you have a good way of articulating these things that people believe but are not necessarily too afraid to say, just don't want the hassle of saying online to get into a big thing, get into a big to-do with the other weirdos on this website. But you seem very good at cutting through the fat and getting to the root of the issue. And where do you think this motivation comes from?
Thank you. I have always been incredibly online. Stunning indictment of my character. I first started posting on forums, the Battlefield 1942 forum, when I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. And
10 or 11 on the Battlefield. The Battlefield 1942. You were such into that game that you were a dedicated forum poster.
Yeah, best game ever made. Yeah.
I was on Newgrounds a lot. That was my early forum posting experience, and also a lurker on Something Awful. I never ended up paying for Something Awful.
Oh, I paid for Something Awful. Yeah, I was a shit poster there for a while too.
Hell yeah, you were a goon.
Yeah. There are, unfortunately, stairs in my house. Yeah.
that rule. I mean, talk about another website where you could see its distinct market decline over a period of time. I don't know, was there a jump the shark moment for Something Awful as much as there was for just a clear pinpoint jump the shark moment for Twitter, which is of course Elon buying it?
That's a good question. It's hard to say. I think, God, that's old forums lore to try to remember the exact detail, but probably when at some point the site owner Lotax flipped out and started giving everyone started relegating certain people that he didn't like to a green avatar and putting their forums in like a hidden forum or something.
Yeah.
And it was just the most transparently, he's just out of control of, he doesn't really get what people are there for anymore. He doesn't really get why they're posting in general. They don't particularly like him. Mm-hmm. I think that was probably the breaking point.
Yeah. The increasing erraticness of Lotax.
Yeah. Yeah,
maybe
we are seeing that now. Yeah, it seems like Elon is really taking the low text road, which yes. I'm delighted by. I love how that's going to end. I'm excited.
Yeah, we all know how that ends. But at least low tax actually made the thing that he ended up ruining. You know, I mean, this is the story of our time, really. That's the Tar story. Somebody creates some sort of big legacy thing and ends up being beloved and ends up destroying all of that goodwill by being a huge freak, like J.K. Rowling or Notch from Minecraft.
Oh God, he was a weird one too.
Yeah.
I remember when it came out about like the big wall of candy just rotting in his billionaire home in LA.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. It's a tendency across every sector of our society, it seems, for rich people to lose their minds when anyone anywhere says anything mean to them.
Mm-hmm. I want to get to be that point. I want to make this media brand. We're taking it all the way to the top, and I'm going to eventually destroy everything and start selling mangosteen and start getting really into mangosteen or whatever.
Absolutely. No, people always say online, like, oh, if I was a billionaire, I would never post on here. I would never look at this forum. I'd be off on some mountain somewhere doing weird drugs in some exotic foreign country. No, bullshit. I would be online. I would still be posting. I would still get really mad when anyone was rude to me. I would still not ever log off.
Oh, yeah. It's
any amount of money.
Because also, like, when you have a bunch of followers, too, it's a fairly infectious feeling of, I think it's an old Finessa Fudge's post or something like that, where it's saying that the point of this website is to eventually get enough followers so that you can tweet going for a burger and get 40 likes, right? And that's yes, I agree with that. There's something very nice about that. There's something very affirming about that. But on the other side, if I posted
going for a burger, I'd get 1,000.
Yeah, well, because you're in the food beat. You got your food beat going on.
I have my weird little niche hobby that has somehow people have lost their minds over it. I don't really understand why it's been as popular as it has been. But
the rotating sandwiches, of course.
Rotating sandwiches, rotating-sandwiches.com. We're #1 source online for rotating sandwiches. We recently went from 30 to 40 rotating sandwiches on display, with more to come.
Because I saw you like discover that last year from Instagram, and it was like, was it like the moment in The Simpsons when Homer's mom sees Joe Namath's sideburns and it, like the world rotates around you and you hear "Sunshine of Your Love" and you're like, this is something that I must be doing. It seems something that was so within your character that of course you would pursue it.
Exactly. No, that's pretty much what happened. Yeah, there was a shout out to the Internet Archive, one of the great websites of all time. Mm-hmm. They have some guy uploaded a collection of like 6,000 rotating food items. There's hundreds. It's fantastic. And I saw some of them and I was like, I'm a photographer in my free time as well. And I realized it wouldn't actually be that hard to do with the equipment I mostly already had. So I was like, yeah, if you have the technology, you have something of an obligation to do it.
An obligation. I like that choice of words, but because you are like the thing about a sandwich is it's almost like a piece of live music. You know, it's ethereal and it's gone in a second, and everyone is slightly different from the last. So there is like that desire to preserve this uniquely ethereal experience. I appreciate that, and you know, sort of what the philosophy of the Internet Archive is all about. What sort of a general larger sentiment towards preservation of culture, that famous phrase, whatever not saved will be lost. You know, I think people are really taking that to heart nowadays.
No, I think so too. Yeah, I think that of Twitter has been a big part of that too. People, and also just like all of the tech firings and all of the apps becoming more expensive. And I don't know, I recently replugged in my 20 terabyte external like mini home server, and I might have to figure out how to torrent again. It's been a while, but I'm feeling that same preservationist urge real hard lately.
Yeah, and the delightful sandwiches, the wonderful sandwiches from various shops. What can you tell me about the pit beef sandwich?
Oh my God, the pit beef is like maybe the most slept on American great sandwich. Like outside of Baltimore and DC, because we're close to Baltimore, I've never seen it anywhere else. But it's like a perfect top brown beef that's been usually like seared. It's not smoked. It's not like a really long smoked meat. It's usually done over like charcoal, like a charcoal pit is how the really great places in Baltimore do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like the thinly sliced top round, usually raw, thinly sliced white onions, and then horseradish, and it's just flawless.
Mm-hmm.
Usually on like a potato bun or something.
Yeah.
Maybe the best discovery I've had since moving to kind of the region a couple of years ago. As far as Philly's got their Philly cheesesteak and the porchetta thing. DC sort of has half smokes. It's not really a super great culinary tradition here, but the pit beef truly is like the regional sandwich of choice for the Chesapeake.
Yeah, well, because I watched The Wire again recently because Lance Reddick passed away, and it initiated my MK Ultra trigger. Okay, I got to watch The Wire again.
Every couple of years, yeah,
they make reference anytime one of the major stars of it passes away. That happens. I did the same thing after Michael K. Williams died, which is bad. That shouldn't be my first instinct. Maybe I should watch something else that they were in as well. It's like, this is how I will pay tribute to them, by passively watching media that they were in. And
the problem with both those guys is that most of the stuff that they made was not as good as The Wire.
Yeah. Well, Lance Reddick, did you see Corporate?
No, but that's one of the people when he passed away, people talked about like actually being secretly really good. And I've thought about checking it out for that reason.
Surprisingly good Comedy Central series that just got no play because it's a very, very dour and depressing show. But Lance Reddick plays a manic, insane, authoritarian, evil CEO in it, and he's very good. But yeah, the pit beef sandwich is something that I've always wanted to try. I haven't been to the Baltimore, Washington area, but the way people talk about it, it hits all the pleasure nodes. It hits this is everything I want in a sandwich. Horseradish sauce. Is it like a sweet or a tangy horseradish, or more of like a piquant, spicier horseradish?
It's definitely on the spicier, like piquant side. Some people do also add like barbecue sauce. Like, highly recommend if you're at all a sports fan or just an appreciator of baseball, Camden Yards in Baltimore is the most beautiful baseball park in the country. I'm convinced. Yeah. And their pit beef is really solid. So if you're only in like Baltimore for a day, it's pretty much a perfect like evening experience. Is like big beer, pit beef, and an Orioles game.
Sounds fucking great. Fucking I gotta love the A's because and it's the perfect name for a Baltimore accent as well.
Absolutely. And they're like actual, like the city actually does really, like the fan base is actually really passionate about it. It's still like Washington, DC, no one here really, there are Nats fans, but most of them are just kind of bloodless corporate types. Baltimoreans actually seem to give a shit about their team, which is great.
Yeah, because there's like, the Orioles is one of the few teams that has like a really distinct personality. Because of just the legacy of Cal Ripken and the Oriole way, they called it, or something like that, about their like hard training. At least that was back in the 70s or something like that.
Yeah, they still talk about that kind of stuff in the city somewhat. Like, I don't think the actual team's current identity is too tied into that anymore, but it kind of held them back for a long time. Part of the Oriole way was never doing any scouting in any Latin American countries.
Okay, that's a little racist. That's a little problematic.
Yeah, also just really stupid.
Yeah, that's the best players in the world are all from these places. But yeah, I mean, an interesting history. I listened to some of that podcast Rumor. Did you ever hear about that podcast Rumor?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
It was just about, so Cal Ripken has the longest streak ever in baseball, right? But there was one game where he couldn't play because allegedly he had punched Kevin Costner in the face after Kevin Costner slept with his wife. And so he was out. His hand was injured. And so they broke some glass. They broke some lights in order to call off the game. And that's how Cal Ripken was able to continue his unbroken streak of games played.
I think I remember when that rumor like recirculated fairly recently. Yeah. And I think whether it's true or not, I think you can't really get that mad at any woman for sleeping with Kevin Costner in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
Like at his Field of Dreams to Kevin Costner, all-time great sports movie guy.
Oh yeah. But I think this was '90s Costner. This is like Waterworld Costner. This is like the postman Costner. You know, sort of at the nadir of his career. Not the nadir of his career. What has he been in recently? I guess he's Yellowstone. He's had a career resurgence because of Yellowstone.
Oh yeah, he's really big into that. That is one that I have not watched a second of, but all of my like rural family members love it. It's supposed to be okay. I've heard really good things, but he seems perfectly happy doing that for the rest of his life. So, but who knows? I think we'll still get at least one more great sports movie out of him now that he's kind of transitioned from being like a player age to a manager age. Maybe we'll get a sequel to the much underrated Draft Day.
Oh, Draft Day. That's a movie I've never seen. What is Draft Day?
Draft Day is about him as a football team executive on draft day doing the draft and like calling. You have to be kind of like a sports sicko to like enjoy a movie about management. But as far as it goes, it's way better than anyone gives it credit.
Yeah, people love Moneyball level,
but
yeah, people love that people love fucking Moneyball. People intensely love that movie. I like that movie, even though it's like one of the most straight ahead movies of all time. You know, there's not like a huge emotional heft to it, but it's fun to watch the procedure of things happening.
It's a brilliant script, which is great because the actual Moneyball thing is like the book within like baseball circles is kind of reviled at this point.
Because it overstates sabermetrics or something like that?
It overstates sabermetrics, and also it pretty much just like straight up ignores the fact that the A's had like the Cy Young winner on it. They had incredible talent on that team that like weren't all of the guys that are featured in Moneyball were like fringe players on the edge who maybe contributed a couple wins over the course of the season. And it just like totally ignores the rest of the roster. Like they're not even mentioned. And like some of them were superstars. Some of them were like really good players. Also, I think baseball people are kind of sick of the cheapness that kind of thing has come to the cheapness that people kind of I think people are kind of sick of owners using Moneyball ideas as an excuse to not spend money and try to win games. The sport has had that problem for a couple of years now of the smart tank, where they try to punt for like 5 to 10 years of competition so that one day in the future, maybe they'll be good. And sometimes it works. Sometimes, the Cubs and the Astros both did that to huge success, World Series wins. But if you're from Pittsburgh, if you're from Oakland, your team's never going to win again.
Yeah.
Those guys are just cheap assholes and use it as an excuse to never do anything.
Is like there's like sort of big debate over the use of ops, right? For people that I'm just learning this stuff right now, but on base plus slugging is generally seen as like if you're rating a player by any one metric, that's the metric you use. And there's been a sort of a big controversy over using this metric as well.
It's one of those things. Yeah. A couple years ago, some of the smarter, more analytically minded teams started like putting more advanced statistics on like the scoreboard during games, and a bunch of old guys flipped out about it. But I think at this point, the nerds have pretty effectively won. The real sickos like me use stuff like OPS plus and WRC plus, which is all league adjusted and accounts for like the weather at parks and shit like that, to really get sicko about it. But that's more on like the iceberg meme. That's way closer down in the waters where you really shouldn't venture unless you have nothing else going on in your life.
Yeah, the abyss. Yeah, if you're using OPS plus. But I think the sort of numbers sicko aspect of baseball, more so than any other sport, it seems. Like there are number sickos for every sport, but baseball is the most number sicko sport.
Easily, yeah. Although I think it's getting to the point in basketball now where their sickos are even more disgustingly devoted to the stats than the baseball ones are. But the baseball guys have been around the longest now. All their stuff started in like the zeros, whereas the football and basketball people, and God forbid the hockey people, are only just now kind of getting into their prime. So they'll be much more annoying in a couple of years. Don't worry.
But this is sort of like, I'm getting into it because of the numbers, because it's appealing to my inherent nerdiness. I know Jane, your co-host, is like a a big Warhammer head, and you're into D&D, right?
Yeah, I got back into it about a year or so ago, or year and a half or so ago. Yeah, I used to be way into it when I was younger,
Mm.
but no, the stats are definitely a big part of it. I'm a regular reader of Fangraphs, which is like a big analytically minded sports writing site about baseball. I do the most spreadsheeting of anybody on betting around by a mile. Jane
Yeah.
and Steven come about their nerdiness in more honest, actual fans of teams ways than I do.
Hmm.
But no, I totally get you. I've always needed a hobby that involves some kind of number
Hmm.
for some reason, and baseball just perfectly fit into that mold in a way that was much more socially acceptable than like liking cameras too much.
uh, yeah, well, because baseball you can appreciate on the technical, but also on the emotional level. You know, there's always that. Especially what I truly came to understand about the emotional component of sports in general is that more than anything, you're always fighting against injury. Like the potential to get injured horribly is always the thing that is looming in the back of your head and heightening everything with drama, because you can be like the best player in the fucking world, but you just step on your knee the wrong you step on your foot the wrong way, and that's it for you.
Absolutely, as happens all the time. Like the World Baseball Classic recently came through, and was awesome. It was fantastic. It was some of the best exhibition baseball I've ever seen. People were really into it, but Edwin Diaz, who closes for the Mets, injured himself celebrating after a game. Is going to be out all season. So Mets fans have just been apoplectic about this and how it means that the tournament is fake. It's like, no, you got to, if you're not going to show up and do the Olympic style Team USA stuff, why even bother?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the WBC it pulled in so many non-fans like me. I was, because the compelling story. Okay, so here's the two greatest players in baseball right now, both of which have like a claim to be like greatest of all time claim.
Mm-hmm.
Like Shohei Ohtani, especially, just is like looking at the stats of this guy. You're telling me he's 6'4". He's like built like a brick shit house. He's fast as the wind. He pitches as well as he bats, both at like the highest levels imaginable, which nobody has ever done ever. You're telling me this guy versus like Mike Trout, who's like the hittingest man on earth. He can hit anything that comes across the goddamn plate.
Best player of the last decade, at least. Yeah. Compelling case that he should have won like 7 or 8 MVPs over the course of his career.
Yeah.
No, the two of them both are like during the baseball season, they're stranded in Anaheim, which, God bless them, the Angels try, but
yeah, I mean, that's also the funny, compelling part of the story. The two greatest baseball players ever, and they're on a team that sucks, and that they can't save single-handedly with their skill.
Yeah, the great tragedy of baseball is that you can't just like win it with 2 or 3 guys. You really got to have like 9 competent players to even sniff the playoffs, and they never manage. It's a bummer. But you're right. The WBC was perfect just because it put the two of them in like the highest possible stakes situation in the finals, just organically over the course of a couple weeks of the tournament, and it was some of the best baseball I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. I think. And there was like a compelling case. I think that they should do it every 2 years. It's currently every 4. They didn't do it for a couple years because of COVID, but I think it was a great chance for a lot of people to see that baseball can be fun and fans can actually have fun while watching it. Mm-hmm. Something that you don't see too often in the U.S., unfortunately.
Yeah, I think. Stephen was talking on the podcast about how a big problem with that is the just amount of games. Like if you lop off 10 games from the season, people will show up more for regular games or see them as special events or see them as something to attend. Also, it's easier on the players as well.
Yeah, there's an increasingly compelling case that they should. 162 games is just a lot. It's a lot of baseball. I don't think they will cut it down anytime soon, but there's a case to be made that if it was even just a couple games fewer. But I think the biggest problem with getting people to actually have more fun at games outside of the length of the season is that the tickets are just so goddamn expensive.
Yeah,
it's that is the why I really highly recommend minor league baseball to everyone who like is looking to get into the sport, because you can actually go to a game for cheap, and it's like a couple bucks to get in. Hot dogs usually aren't insanely priced. You can do drugs outside and then come in high. It's a much more compelling environment for regular people than a major league stadium.
Hell yeah.
And that's a new thing. It used to be that, bleacher tickets were like a couple bucks, but last couple years, ownership has made it harder for people to actually get in the gates.
Yeah, when I went to a Jays game last time, I was in a nosebleed section and it was $30. So
the Jays especially are pretty bad about this, which is irritating because I'm pretty sure they're also the only team that has like they don't really like play like it. They don't really build their roster like it. But I think they're actually like the richest team in terms of ownership.
That's very interesting.
They're worth like an unfathomable amount of money.
Yeah, because there's nothing you can do
owners.
to piss Jays fans off. We'll keep coming back year after year. I mean, that's like also part of what got me into baseball recently is watching that John Boy's Dave Stieb documentary. And
it was fantastic. Yeah, all of his like video series are incredible, but that one like blew me away.
Yeah, I mean, just because the incredible unlikeliness of like setting up. It was something like 8 no-nos and then like losing at the very last second. And then finally in your last year, you finally get your no-no, which is a no-hitter. I'm saying no-no like I know something. But
no, it's a flawlessly constructed narrative. He does an amazing job. And actually, anybody who makes any kind of content will appreciate this. This is one of the funniest things I ever found out was that he makes those videos in the Google Earth software.
In the Google Earth software.
Yeah, there's like a Google Earth program you can download and put on your computer, and he makes them in that. And as someone who does like video editing, dabbles in like video production, insane to me that he makes it work.
Yeah, that's like a step beyond like Linux guy in terms of specific software to use. I think specificity, that's also a word that I want to explore with baseball, because baseball too tends to have much more specific athletes, like sort of weird guys, especially before the steroid era, when you could have someone as just incredibly weird as Pete Rose become one of the greatest of all time.
It's always been a strength of the sport is that you can like be like a regular looking guy and still play it at a very high level, or even like a chubby guy. You can look at like one of the best World Baseball Classic starts came from on the White Sox starting pitcher whose name I'm blanking on, Lance Lynn, who like if you picked him out of a lineup, you'd be like, this guy works at like a deli.
Yeah.
But he's throwing like 93-mile-an-hour heaters and striking out like some of the best players on earth. Even
on the Jays, we got one of our franchise stars is Bo Bichette, and he looks like a 19-year-old at Bible camp. He's like in like Arkansas or something like that, and a very varied type of guy that you get in baseball. I think because of its inherent folksiness as well, it attracts a weirder type of athlete as well. There's not as much like pomp and circumstance to it as basketball or football. It's not as hype as that, but that's sort of the appeal of it as well. There's more of a slow, breezy ASMR attitude to it, which is attractive to a different caliber of person.
Absolutely, yeah. You also get like they're just, especially with pitchers, I found they have so much time kind of stewing in their own juices in the bullpen that they develop really eccentric personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time that's like that usually means they're like MAGA guys, but every now and then you get one who's like genuinely just a really strange and funny person.
Yeah. But even the MAGA guys are like weird and specific as well. Like, not the same type of MAGA guys that you get in any other sport. Like, I mean, it creates someone like John Rocker. Is there like, I don't think there's like a John Rocker of like football or basketball.
Thankfully, no. I think John Rocker, there's only one John Rocker. That's one John Rocker too many.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I always think of Bill Lee as my all-time favorite, most eccentric player, who was famous for, among other things, smoking weed in the outside of Fenway Park. And weird, funny story. He played in like senior leagues his whole life. Like after he retired, he would go pitch for like softball games in the middle of nowhere. And my dad actually played baseball with him, or played softball with him once. My dad was a reporter at newspaper in Phoenix. This is before I was born in the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Lee was just coming through town for something. My dad was interviewing him for some story about whatever charity game he was coming to play. And my dad, just as a joke, was like, "Hey, we have the newspaper softball team is having a match in a couple days. If you're in town, do you want to go?" And he just showed up to like this interdivisional game between like the Arizona Republic and the Arizona New Times or something, and pitched for him.
That's good. He's just down. Sure, yeah, I'll do it. I'm Billy. Yeah,
kind of nothing else going on.
I think it's also the one sport where you can wear glasses. I guess you can wear glasses in basketball, but they're different types of glasses. You can wear like Greg Maddox glasses in baseball. You can be a big nerd and still be an athlete in baseball.
Exactly. Sadly, I don't think we see too many of like the old, like rocking like the 70s frames anymore. But if you like the old baseball cards, you can find some guys who just look like the most nerdy dads of all time. And then they also look like they're like 45 years old, and you look at the card and they're 23. But that's more because of the lack of sunscreen when they were growing up.
Yeah, all the free radicals just floating around in their system, all the lead floating around in their system. But any sport where you can just have like, there's Randy Johnson and Kirby Puckett, and they're playing the same sport. These almost cartoonish athletes in a way.
It's a beautiful
much more
thing,
cartoony.
Yeah. And the baseball is definitely trending towards everyone being like 6'4" and 250 pounds. But you still see, like on the edge cases, you still see a guy like Jose Altuve who's like, he's 5'5" on the playing card. He is not 5'5" in real life. Stuff like that. And I think we actually just hit a new record for tallest guy in the majors. I think the new tallest guy is a relief pitcher, I want to say in the Giants organization, maybe, who's like legit 7 feet tall.
Hell yeah.
Just insanely tall guy. At some point, they'll play against the Astros, and there'll be a picture of him standing from the mound looking at like a very tiny Jose Altuve, and it'll be briefly people in the public will care about baseball again. It'll be great.
Yeah. Who doesn't like a very tall man juxtaposed to a short man?
It's always funny. It's like it works great with dogs, and it works even better with people.
Yeah, it's the basis for every comedy duo that's ever been. There's a short, squat guy, and there's a tall, thin guy, and then they're bumbling henchmen or something like that. Or,
Laurel and Hardy, all the way to Aaron Judge and Jose Altuve.
Yeah, it's a continuum of that dichotomy. I think. So I was talking to you before the show officially began how. We're both in the socialists, the leftists space, which is embarrassing to say. I don't know why. It's embarrassing to call yourself a leftist or something like that, because
it makes it feel like it's more important than it probably is in our day-to-day lives. Yeah.
Especially because, I'm not organizing anything. I'm not going to like events. I'm not building anything for anyone. I just have my ideas that I post online.
Yeah, we just hang out on the computer. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. You don't have to do anything. So, but I think in my more optimistic moments, or in my moments of what do I think I'm doing online? I'm communicating. I'm trying to communicate some sort of political ideals sometimes. And maybe if I do that in a way that is cogent and relatable enough, I can maybe convince people that these ideas are nice. Some ideas are good. Maybe come over here to our side. It's a very nice party. And I think, getting into sports is part of that as well, because just the ability to talk to people on that level is one of these great unifiers. In the Chelsea Manning episode, which is fucking, if you listened to the batting around Chelsea Manning episode, listen to it. It's fucking crazy. It's harrowing and like beautiful. And
yeah, she was a really cool guest. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's had one of the most incredible lives on earth. But the idea of like baseball, so talking about her experience in prison and having baseball, just the schedule of it, binding her to routine and sanity, that's such an amazing conclusion. That's such an amazing emotional experience to talk about. And later, when she's just talking about going to Cubs games and sort of being maybe initially reticent as a queer person to mingle with the crowd, but then finding, oh, nobody cares. They just want to talk about the goddamn Cubs. You know, I think that part of it too is sort of like heartening and beautiful. You know, it sort of gives us this miniature war, this little miniature facsimile of war that we can discuss, and that is, broadly endears everyone to each other. Like, what do you think? What do you think of that?
No, I totally agree. I think easily the best part of doing my podcast, betting around, Twitter handle, I don't remember. Easily the best part of it isn't really the podcast itself. It's finding like a Discord of really cool other like queer LGBT people who are also big fans of this incredibly nerdy thing. I shouldn't call it baseball incredibly nerdy. We're incredibly nerdy about it.
Yeah.
The sport itself is not inherently nerdy. And I love that like there's like this community of more openly LGBT people who are into sports and baseball. I think it's a really healthy thing for people to be into, and a positive sign that like the teams themselves, I think 28 teams do like a pride night. Then the Yankees don't do any kind of pride nights of any kind. They don't do any Italian American heritage nights, anything like that. So I think the teams are also getting more LGBT friendly in a way that is it's like a rainbow capitalism thing, but it makes a difference. Like some of it's silly. Like I think they actually recently renamed the Diamondbacks in Arizona recently renamed the Chase Field family restrooms to like gender inclusive restrooms. And it's just a single stall that they just changed the name on. But
sure. But it's a gesture.
Having used those bathrooms myself before I was like fully out, the little things like that make a big difference. And I also love that while all of this is happening, everybody on the far right is convincing themselves that are becoming sports ball guys. They're like actively moving away from being normal and liking sports because they're just like cocking themselves into being more and more trad and hating more and more. Like they can't watch football anymore. They can't watch baseball anymore. Sooner or later, they'll lose hockey too. Yeah. It's wonderful. I love that we're taking that from them.
Yeah, I mean, my dad has gotten very right-wing as of recent. And the thing that I've noticed in him is it's purging all joy. Mm-hmm. He can't experience joy anymore. He can't, like, he's convinced that all movies are like Hollywood, propaganda trying to infect his brain. And I guess it's the same thing with sports too, just because like it's purely a capitalism thing. The franchises say, okay, what is the percentage of people that like gay people, the percentage of people that like queer people to the percentage of people that don't? Oh, one number is higher. Guess we'll go with that.
Yeah, right? It hit 51%. And they were like, okay, we'll do the rainbow merch. You guys can have all the rainbow merch you want.
Yeah, and I try and talk to him about yeah. Why not? Who doesn't? And, rainbows look good on everything. I'll buy the Rainbow Blue Jays hat. I probably won't buy the Rainbow Blue Jays hat. But yeah, and even if it is nothing, it's still proving to be a contentious issue. Like you have, especially in hockey, for some reason, all the Christian hockey players are saying, "No, I will not wear the rainbow on my jersey. This is because I am Christian."
Yeah, for some reason, hockey is having a much harder. There's probably pretty good reasons for why it's having a much harder time than the other ones.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think the Rays last year, a couple guys refused to wear the hats. It's like, whatever. It's. Those kinds of guys are entitled to their beliefs, I guess, but it's just a kind of a pathetic thing to get super that upset about. And I don't know why hockey hasn't done more to kind of combat that stuff, at least in the press. It's just really bad, like optics for their teams and for their players. But they can't keep it up forever. They're on the losing side. They know it.
Yeah, well, because conversely to baseball, I think hockey selects for the most normative type of athlete, the most basic type of athlete guy you would expect is in hockey. There are very few weird dudes in hockey. I mean, they're weird in the way that hockey guys are weird, in that they're be-mulleted and toothless and. Well, not anymore. I guess I'm thinking of the 70s.
I might actually disagree there, because I think hockey, because of the nature of hockey and because of the nature of how you get to be good enough to get to the major soon, to the highest levels faster, is you have to start playing it basically from the time you can walk and do anything else in your life. You spend your whole life just playing hockey. And I think that produces some incredibly strange people. Baseball, all major sports have that problem now, where the pipeline is so peculiar that you get stuff like LeBron James refuses to pay for Spotify Premium, things like that, where it's just like, why are you like this? Just be regular.
Yeah.
But hockey, I think, has produced some of the strangest looking or strangest thinking, relatively normal looking hunks of men on the planet, and that's kind of a beautiful thing about it.
Yeah. All right. I can accept that, but it's a different type of weird than baseball weird.
Yes, that I think is very true.
Yeah. The other, when you started out your podcast, I anticipate it was much more about, hey, we just want to talk about baseball, more than it was any sort of concerted effort to like bring queer voices into like a mainstream situation. But like, I imagine in the back of your head, you still have that sort of, there still is a slight activism component to it, or do you not care about that at all?
It definitely did start as just like it was like a pandemic thing. We were a couple months in, we were all going stir crazy. We just wanted to talk to our friends more and have an excuse to like schedule time to actually talk to each other. But yeah, I'm waiting for the perks of being that kind of brave hero to come through. It'd be great if a team wanted to, pay me to go cover a game or something. It hasn't happened yet, but who knows? If we're going to be like the trans and queer baseball podcast, eventually maybe we'll benefit from it in some way other than a couple bucks a month on Patreon. But who knows what the future holds? But
you're making real. You got an actual players on the show.
Yes, we have. We've gotten a couple relievers. They I think are the only people weird enough to listen to us. But someday we hope to have on like an actual hitter. It hasn't happened yet.
Oh, you will. It's gonna happen. You're gonna get the Trout interview. He's gonna listen to all the back episodes, and his mind will be blown.
No, we love having. Anytime we have a player on, we refuse to talk about baseball with them. That's one of my favorite bits.
That's a very good bit.
We had Trevor Hilderberger from the most recently in the Giants organization come on, and we made him our F1 correspondent because he's a big F1 fan, and we just talked about F1 the whole episode.
Speaking of things adjacent to baseball, but in entertainment media, and sorry, it's also like in the weird guys category and the John Rocker category, I watched what I consider to be the greatest television show of all time, Eastbound and Down. I watched it again, and yeah, I'm convinced that it is, like, after seeing it again and seeing like where we've come as a culture since Eastbound and Down, it's like, this is one of the most prophetic, like, we're all Kenny Powers now. Everyone is Kenny Powers now. And what about baseball produces people like Kenny Powers? Or
I think that's a great point. I totally agree. I actually watched the show recently for the podcast, and I think it was a combination of the internet destroying everyone's brains that kind of caused that wider Kenny Powersification of the planet, and just everybody getting to like bask in their own reflections 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. But I think Kenny Powers as an archetype, as a baseball guy, isn't one we see as often as we used to. I think I think it's because baseball players became too media savvy and too like trained to be very closed about their answers and to respond to journalists in very calm ways. You don't really see like a Ricky Henderson guys anymore who like, yeah, I am the greatest thing ever. I do kick ass and steal 60 bases a season. I do hit 40 home runs. That does make me a better person than you. Yeah. We've unfortunately lost some of that flair, but there's a couple guys who I think could bring it back. Jazz Chisholm on the Marlins has all the personality in the world and should just shout it from the rooftops forever.
Yeah, we'll love those. Well, I also think because Eastbound and Down is also a story about how the world has moved past Kenny Powers as well and his inability to deal with it. Like, he eventually wants to reclaim his title back in the MLB, but he rejects it because he has understand that the world has moved past him to some degree.
Absolutely, yeah. I kind of like. Hopefully, he's going to jail, but I think the last couple of years has been a very Kenny Powers-esque couple years for Donald Trump as well.
Yeah. But Kenny Powers eventually wins. Donald Trump, I don't know, he might win again. We'll see what happens. So also this week, the indictment of Donald Trump. which I was not really expecting. I thought they were lying about that, or I thought they were like exaggerating what was going to happen, because they made that big announcement a week ago saying on Tuesday they're going to come to the compound, they're going to come to Mar-a-Lago and take me away, and then that didn't happen, and so you're just twiddling your thumbs. Oh, I guess it's not going to happen then. I guess it's
Yeah, and the context too of the larger context of years and years and years of him just getting away with doing whatever he wants. It's still that situation where, like, I don't, until something bad actually happens to him, I'm not going to expect it. But
yeah,
this is as close as we've gotten in a long time, and I'm at least enjoying the vibes of potentially Donald Trump being manhandled by a cop. That'd be so much fun to see.
That would be pretty good. I would like to see him like reach for one of the cops' guns and like that. I think that would be an excellent moment. Yeah, because also just it's amazing how quickly that sort of resistance culture dissipated as soon as Biden was elected.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah. The whole theory of his campaign was that people just really don't want to think about the president every day. And at the time, I was like, no, that's dumb. We should actually vote for someone like Bernie Sanders, who has good politics.
Yeah.
But no, he was totally vindicated.
Yeah.
We all looked like assholes. And he was totally right. People just don't want to think about the president every single day.
Yeah. As long as you betray some sort of image of normalcy, even though Biden is one of the least normal people you could think of, as long as if people just catching you at a glance are like, oh yeah, he seems normal. He seems like, someone I don't need to pay attention to 24 hours a day. Yeah, that's enough for people. They can
After
get
4
back
years,
to the grill. Yeah. I don't know if I am grill pilled or not, but that's sort of an old sentiment as well. That's a sentiment from like 3 or 4 years ago.
That's one I still enjoy. I used to be super grill pilled. Then I moved into the city and don't have any backyard space where I would still have my beloved Weber grill. But someday, who knows?
Someday, so you get one of those indoor grills. You can do a hibachi indoors. It's fine. just get a fan.
I've thought extensively about this. Actually, there's a company that makes a ceramic hibachi grill that's just like this. It's like but it's like 20 inches. It would fit over my little apartment stove, and I think it would be a great like mid-30s single insane person hobby to just. Decide at this point in my life to get really good at all of the like the egg flipping and the little tower of onions that they do all
the Benihana stuff.
Exactly.
Learn all the Benihana techniques.
Master all the Benihana techniques before my 35th birthday. Yeah.
I think that'd be good. That franchise has such a weird story. Rocky Aoki and his son is Steve Aoki.
Oh, that's right. I have heard that. Yeah. And like, I don't think there's like much of like an actual tradition to it in Japan. It was just kind of invented by them, I think.
Yeah, he just made it up. Yeah, because he just realized, people like to be entertained while eating food. So,
and he's right. They flip the little shrimp in your mouth and you go fucking wild. It's great.
Yeah, I've been to a Benihana. It's a fucking blast. And out of it, we got the wonderful, wonderful music of Steve Aoki. So... I don't know any of. I couldn't pick out any of Steve Aoki's music if I heard it, but
no, I don't think I was ever super aware of him until it was announced that he was going to be one of the guys that like travels into space on some like rocket adventure that's planned in the next couple of years with like Jeff Bezos behind it, I think.
Yeah,
or maybe it was Elon Musk thing. I don't know. Either way, good for him that they're sending. They're not quite sending a poet, but they're sending pretty close, I guess.
I guess the last big spacefaring celebrity was Lance Bass.
It was William Shatner, I think.
Oh, you're right. William Shatner went to space and had a huge existential crisis.
Yeah. It like ruined his life. Yeah, which is great. Space, don't go to space. Space is terrifying. Don't. Yeah. I am anti-space.
I like that. I want to do like a Event Horizon style movie with William Shatner where he's facing these cosmic terrors and freaking out about them. So another thing we could talk about, but I always feel like a psycho talking about it, but I am. So I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm so fucking online on fucking Twitter.
Yeah, we are. We can admit our brains are like fundamentally broken by it. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But yeah, it's been really interesting to be on this dying Twitter. Because as I think I said before, I've never seen like a website where you can really pinpoint the moment it went downhill, where you can really, this is the exact day to the hour that Elon Musk took ownership of the company. He's just made every terrible decision you could possibly make, up to and including the fucking check marks. What the fuck is he thinking with the fucking check marks?
Everything he does is like you can like it should be on some kind of Richter scale where the variable is how many like potential lawsuits will come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Elon scale, I think there are days where he just like posts one or two dumb things and it's like a 1 or 2 lawsuit situation. The check mark is like as high as that exponential scale goes. He will just be sued like 10,000 times.
Yeah, because the check mark initially was someone was impersonating a football player, right?
Who was it? It was someone really funny that was like the root cause of it. I don't know if it was a sports celebrity, but it was someone it might have been. It wasn't William Shatner, but it was someone like him.
Okay, someone was impersonating some big celebrity, so they got the check mark system, so this is the official guy. But it's funny because like Musk and his cohort sees the check as an elitist status symbol, which in a way it is. They picked up on one aspect of it where it was but it was more like jokes about checkies being elite. That was like it was never really a serious thing. But he thought it was serious. He thought it was like, oh, people are getting real social capital from these checks.
Him and all his followers thought it was super serious. Yeah, everyone else realized that it was something you could just goof on people for. And I looked it up because I knew it was going to drive me nuts if I didn't. It was Tony La Russa, the baseball manager who is like one of the weirdest guys alive. I should call him the baseball manager and the drunk driving enthusiast, Tony La Russa. Mm-hmm. Who is it's the funniest possible person to have caused all that.
Yeah, and I'm seeing the dominoes meme in my head, of Tony La Russa's birth following to the million lawsuits against Elon Musk.
Yeah, Tony La Russa like gets out of his car after like plowing into the Scottsdale Turnpike is the first domino. The last one is Elon Musk loses all his money.
Yeah,
Tesla fails. Yeah,
he can't be doing this intentionally, right? He can't be like tanking the company intentionally so that like News Corp will buy it or something like that. Or
I don't think so. I think a lot of people have convinced themselves that like I think they're buying into like he's a super genius rumor a little too hard there. I think he's just a dumbass who thinks way too highly of his idiotic friends and really has never been told no in his life.
Have you ever like hung out around very rich people? Or like hung around, because I had an education in a private school in Canada, one that's and I was not well off by any, middle class, but everyone says middle class in order to get away privilege. I'm not privileged. I had to work now, but I have hobnobs with some of the people who have like crazy, like they have 3 mansions with like an underground golf course connecting them, and the sort of like the theme that kept coming back was, oh, these people are all like dumb and bland. Yeah, because they have focused on one thing for their entire life. Not unlike hockey players, they're dumb and bland because they've devoted their entire time to this very specific thing and nothing else.
Pretty much, yeah. I think the richest person I knew, I ever really interacted with was I briefly worked in television. And I was associate producer on this weird TV show that only ever aired, I think, on the Sky Network. But it was all the guy who ran it, who was my boss, was like a former child actor who had like turned his like 60s wealth into like significant enough to run a production company. Very, very rich guy. And I hung out with him a couple times at his place because we used it as a set a few times. And he was very nice. He was a great boss, actually. He was a pretty good guy, and his wife was very sweet, but not a little bit of a trophy wife.
That's all right.
The strangest thing about them was they had this beautiful, gorgeous, like fantastic full-size poodle, who was named Charlie, who was a lovely dog. But then I found out that they only feed him raw, organic, like the nice Whole Foods bacon.
Ooh.
And it's like it's a dog. It eats whatever.
Yeah,
And they
they're
spend
not
more on
thinking.
food than they were paying me.
Uh, yeah, but yeah, that's the exact sort of dumb blandness I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. That's always what I think of when I think of really rich people. Is they're all doing shit like that. And no
Hmm.
one's ever like, why are you doing this? That's knock it off.
Hmm.
Like there was some joke a while back about how like every young man has a series of things that one person told them, why are you doing that? That's kind of weird. And they stop doing it forever.
Hmm.
I think rich people just that never happens to
No, that
them. So
doesn't happen.
they become eccentric in strange and unnerving ways, whereas the rest of us become eccentric in fun, socially acceptable ways.
Yeah, because of the constant eroding effect of nice casual bullying, which
Exactly.
yeah, that's what Twitter's all about, baby. Nice casual bullying. That's what
We
we're
needed
all
it.
in it for.
It's good for us at the end of the day. Yeah.
I think that is sort of like in queer communities too. You watch Paris is Burning, and one of the reasons for reading, why you read people, is that the world is going to read you harder than
Mm-hmm.
we can ever read you. So there's sort of like a preparation for people. You in this space, you will be casually bullied, but this will steel yourself. This will steel your skin to the evil that is out there.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the same like theory as why everybody who's really good at Twitter used to post on forums. It's the winnowing away of all of the parts of yourself that might look too vulnerable to put online.
Hmm. Although, now that I should get more vulnerable. I should start doing. I get pretty vulnerable. Sometimes I'll do a sad comic. People
Yeah.
like
No,
the sad
absolutely. Yeah.
comics.
Not me
Um,
though. I am honed like a blade of steel.
yeah, yeah. You will never be emotional online. You've lost if you're emotional online. That's the death knell. Be emotional in your friends. Be emotional in Discord. Okay, just only be emotional in Discord. That's what it's for.
Good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We got a Discord for House of Decline. I am flummoxed by it. I don't know what it is. I can't. I think
Yeah.
your baseball one's probably better because it's all around a single subject, so people know what to post about.
That does help. Yeah. But I had the same thing where like I grew up on IRC. I can't, Discord is confusing and terrifying. And there's like buttons that do things that I don't know.
Mhm.
Chat rooms used to be simple. I used to understand them, but it's gotten away from me. So we leave all moderation to the Zoomers who listen. They keep it in ship shape, and I just get to drop it in shit post.
Yeah, the good old Zoomers. I like them. The kids are all right, I feel.
No, I'm on the same page. I am not like, oh, the Zoomers are not okay. I do think they should learn how like computers work, but that's my own personal dedication to knowing how computers operate.
Yeah,
They
I
probably don't
can't
need it.
fault them on that because I'm a Luddite as well. I'm using the fact that I'm able to manipulate these buttons at all is a miracle to me. I tried to do programming once. I tried writing "Hello World" and everything exploded. Uh, so yeah, just also the thing about posting is like, do you feel different from when you had a smaller account to a larger account, or do you feel like more under the gun, or like what you're saying is scrutinized more, so you have to be more careful about your words?
I think at a certain point, yeah, you do just kind of like I personally at least get tired of just getting the same like responses this like on certain subjects, so I just won't talk about them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Where there probably was a time where I felt more comfortable just kind of goofing off and shit posting. But for the most part, I think people understand that like I'm not a celebrity. I don't only talk about like the two or three things that interest me.
Mm-hmm.
That is like the privilege of not acting like a brand that
Mm-hmm.
I really recommend more people try.
Yeah, because I mean, I catch myself getting into brand thinking, like thinking I'm a brand. Even like I have my artwork for House of Decline. I have everything up there. But yeah, that's sort of a natural way you start thinking after a while.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start getting a lot of you start thinking about PR and what version of myself am I presenting to people.
Yeah, it's one of the more insidious things about social media, I think, because it kind of trains you to do that. And suddenly, like, you're someone with like 500 followers who like, oh, I can only really talk about woodworking or whatever my thing is.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you can just hang out on the computer. It's fine.
I think that's why accounts that are clearly just posting as themselves are so beloved. Like people like Jason or Sanj. Like these are guys. They're not presenting any airs. This is who they are 100%. And I think there's sort of like a refreshing honesty to that, which you don't even see in a lot of other accounts.
Totally. Oh, the king of that back in the day was Shaq. I joined Twitter, like many people, originally in 2009 because Shaq was on it and was just like, I always think about the original tweet that I saw that was like, okay, I got to get on here. And it was Shaq and Jason Kidd at the Five and Diner 50s themed diner in Phoenix, Arizona. And Shaq was making fun of Jason Kidd for ordering a salad at a diner. And that kind of honesty from celebrities was like the total key to making it work for years and years. And they don't do that anymore. It has to leave it to like the weird Twitter people to have that kind of fun online still.
Mm-hmm. No more Knott's Berry Farm, but too big post.
He was so good at that back in the day too. Yeah. I miss him so much.
Shaquille O'Neal, what is he doing now? He's a sportscaster, right?
He's really bad at it. Yeah, everyone's kind of him and Charles. I think the basketball like Twitter community at least has really turned on them as analysts, and like they don't really seem too tuned into the game. Baseball, I think every sport has this problem, but basketball especially, the fans seem to have really turned on those two guys in particular, and they're just like, you should just stop doing this if you don't care.
Well, I think it's fine. It's Shaquille O'Neal. He's a 7'4" man talking. I'll just watch it. I'll listen to any 7'4" guy. I want to know what they have to say.
I was a kid growing up in the 90s in Phoenix, Arizona. Charles Barkley is a god to me and can never do any wrong. But I think the people who care more about the sport are the ones who are kind of burned out on them, always just hating on the modern game.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll never fire him. TNT, they bring in too much money with the spicy takes and the jokes and whatnot. I don't think they'll ever actually stop.
Huh. You think so? How long do you think we have before Twitter finally dies? Or
that's a really good question. I think it'll probably continue on in some form forever. I think at some point maybe it goes into some sort of like corporate stewardship and it becomes less annoying, but maybe by that point there'll be some competitive, like people moves on. I think there's like a zeitgeist to it that was like, there was some kind of spark that it had where it felt like the world's biggest internet forum where like you can just go on and see. My whole thing is like, you can just so long as you can log on once a day and see someone saying the strangest thing you've ever heard, it's still going to be a good site and it's still going to be entertaining.
Yeah. And no end to that.
If that ever goes away. Yeah.
We just got very classic main characters, the Pussy Inspector.
Oh, that one was so
awful.
Jessica just Pin, awful. Something like that. Just an insanely bizarre person. That one in particular was terrible.
Yeah, it really did not. And it's amazing when they just keep doubling down too, because like I got in Twitter problems recently. And
yours was dumb. I thought.
Yeah, mine was dumb. I didn't have to apologize, but I apologized anyway because it will instantly get every person yelling at you to stop yelling at you. So I don't know why people just don't apologize. It's so easy.
No, it's free. It takes 10 seconds. It's like, oh, okay, sorry, my bad, my mistake. But no, Twitter people never seem to do that for some reason.
You got to double down, because it's you get the hot back of the neck feeling, as I call it. And you're like, no.
Everyone needs to know how right I am. Every single particle in my body is emotionally and intellectually correct at all times.
Yes. And well, for you, that might actually be the case. I think we've come to a good ending here. What are your plugs? Give us your plugs.
Right. I got to promote Batting Around is my baseball podcast. We're a baseball podcast that sometimes actually talks about baseball. RotatingSandwiches.com is my website that I love. There's no ads. It's just rotating sandwiches and nothing else. And you don't really need to follow me on Twitter. I post more of the sandwich gifts there than I do anywhere else. But outside that, I'm just hanging out on the computer.
Hell yeah. Well, Lauren, it was amazing to have you. You're a great first guest for this format change. I really appreciate you coming on. Love the podcast, love the sandwiches, love the posts, and we'll keep posting until this thing dies.
Damn right. Thank you for having me on. I'm a big fan of the comic.
Thank you.